God. Will you all pray with me? Oh Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So over the course of the last year, I've been looking for something that I couldn't find. It was a letter that somebody wrote, and I wanted to refresh my memory about that letter. And I've looked in all kinds of places where it might have been, and I couldn't find that letter anyplace. Knew I wouldn't have thrown it out. Where was that letter? Well, I have a folder that I keep for every Sunday of the lectionary calendar. 100 and some odd, 150, whatever, 160, I don't know, 52 Sundays a year, 3 years going. So I got one of those folders, and I pulled out the folder this week for the fourth Sunday of Easter in year A and opened the folder. And lo and behold, what did I find in that folder? That letter. A very odd place for that letter. But I found it. And maybe I used this letter in this sermon sometime in the past. That must be why it's in the folder. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't have any notes to that effect. But what's special about the letter and why does it have meaning today? Because the letter was written in the 1960s, in 1965 to be exact, by the pastor of my congregation, my Presbyterian church, back when I was still in high school. It was written following when the pastor and several other folks from the church, including my father, went to Selma, Alabama, to march with Dr. Martin Luther King. And it was a letter recalling the events of that day and what that experience was like. To have marched in that great march, which we're all familiar with. They made a movie about it. Some of you were old enough to remember when it happened. Took a lot of courage. And that's one of the things you see in that letter. It is a letter about faith and about a group of folks acting with enormous courage to act on their faith, not knowing what the consequences might be when they acted on their faith. It's like what Peter writes in his letter, that you may be called to endure much. There may be suffering, but God is with you. You are the sheep of his fold, and God will protect you and go with you. It's also a faith that allowed those early Christians, as we read in Acts today. Did you listen carefully to the words in Acts? I mean, I'll tell you, Jesus wasn't just a liberal, Jesus was a socialist. They kept all things in common. They sold all their possessions and gave to each as they had need. Wow. But how did they get to that place? That place of being able to live like that, those early Christians. That took a kind of courage even in that time and place. And as that first century went on, they're going to be persecuted. That's why Peter wrote that letter. It's going to be hard to do what they do, to give, to live in generosity. And I think they all got to do that because they all paid attention to the shepherd's voice. And they knew that they were going to be all right. They knew what they were called to do because they heard that voice. They heard that voice louder and more clearly than any other voice. It's like when I take Bonnie and Sophie up to my brother's huge piece of property. He's got about 500 acres up there in Buchanan. And I let the dogs run and they go way, way out there someplace. But when I holler out, Sophie, Bonnie, they come running back, tails wagging, all excited, because they know where to go back to. They know where they're safe. They know where they're cared for. They know the voice. Or it's like how you recognize your kid. You moms, have you ever been in a place where there's a lot of children? Maybe at a summertime pool or some big outdoor playground. And there's lots of moms there and lots of children. But when your kid over there hollers, Mom, you know it's your kid. There may be a dozen moms here, but you know that mom was meant for you because you recognize the voice. Or you recognize when it's your kid who falls down out there and skins their knee, and it's your kid who's crying. even though there's a huge crowd of other kids. You recognize your child's cry. That's the connection that we need with Jesus. That's what all this sheep talk gets to be about, because sheep know the shepherd's voice and they pay attention to it. They completely and utterly trust the shepherd to provide for them and give them everything that they need. They even know when they mess up, the shepherd will come and find them. You know, it says a line in there that goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Well, there's another way you could translate the word for follow. The word occurs in the Hebrew and other places and in the Greek. And another way it gets translated is to pursue. God is always pursuing you with goodness and mercy, not just kind of following you around, but pursuing you with goodness and mercy all the time, taking care of you. And sometimes sheep get a bum rap for being dumb. I think I must have made some joking reference to dumb sheep when I first went out to Sutton, because it kind of lived as this joke about the dumb sheep in the congregation. And so it was Wednesday morning and I got a text message from Sutton. And it said, "Your dumb sheep are in Bible study," because they always studied the lectionary text for the coming week, with many funny-faced smiles coming after that, reminding me. But sheep really aren't so dumb. I saw some program on TV not long ago where they put different colored paint on the back of sheep, depending upon like how old they were. And then they had cameras up above flying around, watching these sheep move around. And there's nothing dumb about where the sheep go. The older sheep know that the safest place is going to be in the middle of the flock. So when you look down from the drone, all the sheep who are the oldest sheep, where are they? They have found their way into the middle of the flock. The older the sheep, the better the grass they find. They've learned where the best grass is. The older sheep who've learned more get through the gate first. The older sheep get through the gate first. Well, folks, some of us older folks need to be leading the way through the gate. Leading the way. Because hopefully we've got a faith that we truly trust, that enables us to go out and do brave things, knowing that God will provide for us and take care of us. And the more we know that God provides for us and takes care of us, the more courage we get to stick our necks out, and the more we desire to share and to be generous and to do those hard things of faith. Sort of the interesting dynamic here between faith and works. Yes, we say we get justified by faith alone. But if I have faith, deep faith, and know how much I'm loved and cared for by God, I just have to let that spill out of me and be generous to other folks and share with other folks. And I want to go out and do God's work. And the more I go out and do God's work and realize that God is with me, helping me do God's work, the more faith I have. which makes me want to go out and do it more. See how it works? It's a wonderful thing. This little psalm that we all know so well and many of us memorized in childhood. I think we love it and we memorize it when we're young. At least I hope you did. And I hope our children will. Because it says everything we need to know about our relationship with God. It says everything we need for our spiritual journey. Hang on to that faith because God provides for you always. God walks with you even in the valley of the shadow of death. You are never left alone. Your shepherd is there. Your shepherd is hanging on to you, and your shepherd is pursuing you with goodness and mercy all the days of your life. Amen.